Port Harcourt was a city that never truly slept. Even when the night deepened and the humid air wrapped around the streets like a warm blanket, life continued to pulse through its veins. From the rumble of distant generators to the faint music drifting from roadside bars, the city breathed constantly, restless, hungry, ambitious. In this city of oil wealth and quiet desperation lived a man named Chinedu Okafor. Chinedu was not born into wealth. He did not inherit businesses or properties. Everything he had in life came from years of relentless effort, sacrifice, and an almost stubborn refusal to give up. At 48, Chinedu had built a respectable life for himself. He owned a thriving construction supply company that provided building materials to developers across River State. Cement, rods, tiles, plumbing equipment. If a project was going up somewhere in the city, chances were Chinedu's company had supplied something for it. It had not been easy. There were years when he slept in his office because he could not afford rent. Years when banks rejected his loan applications. Years when customers delayed payments and he struggled to pay workers. But slowly, painfully, things began to change. One contract led to another. One successful delivery built his reputation. Developers began to trust him. And trust in the construction business was everything. By the time he turned 45, Chinedu had finally reached a point where he could breathe. His business was stable. His wife, Amaka, had opened a small pharmacy that was doing well in their neighborhood. Their 2 children attended good schools. Life, for the first time in decades, felt secure. But security was never enough for Chinedu. He had a dream, a bigger one. He wanted to build something that would last beyond him, something his children would inherit, something that would carry the Okafor name long after he was gone. Real estate, land. In Port Harcourt, land was power. Land was legacy. And if there was one area everyone was talking about, it was Transamadi Extension. The area was rapidly transforming. Old warehouses were being demolished. New office complexes, shopping centers, and luxury apartments were rising from the ground like giants claiming territory. Developers were moving in quickly. Anyone who owned land there was sitting on gold. Chinedu had been watching the area for months. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. It started with a phone call. Chinedu was seated in his office reviewing delivery invoices when his longtime friend, Ifeanyi Noso, walked in without knocking. Ifeanyi was the type of man who always seemed to know something before everyone else did. He worked as a land consultant. Some called him a broker, others called him a fixer. But Ifeanyi preferred the term property facilitator. He had helped many businessmen acquire land over the years. Chinedu, Ifeanyi said, closing the office door behind him. I have something big. Chinedu leaned back in his chair. You always say that. This one is different. Ifeanyi lowered his voice. There is a property in Transamadi Extension. Prime location, 3 plots, clean title. Chinedu felt his heart beat faster. How much? Ifeanyi hesitated. 650 million naira. The number hung in the room like heavy air. 650 million naira. Chinedu exhaled slowly. That is not small money, Ifeanyi. Ifeanyi replied. But listen first. He pulled out his phone and showed Chinedu photographs. The land was huge. Flat terrain, good road access, surrounded by new developments. Chinedu immediately recognized the area. This place, he murmured. Exactly, Ifeanyi said. Within 5 years, this land will triple in value. Who owns it? Ifeanyi leaned closer. The owner is Chief Bamidele Adeyemi. Chinedu had heard the name before. Chief Adeyemi was one of those men whose influence stretched across politics, business, and society. He owned multiple companies and was rumored to have strong connections within government circles. People said if Chief Adeyemi wanted something done, it got done. Chinedu frowned slightly. A man like that selling land? Ifeanyi nodded. He is restructuring some investments, moving capital into oil services. And the documents? Registered title? Survey plan, everything clean. Chinedu leaned forward, Are you sure? Ifeanyi looked him directly in the eyes. Chinedu, I would not bring you something risky. The two men had known each other for nearly 20 years. Trust ran deep between them. Still, 650 million naira was not a casual investment. It represented nearly everything Chinedu had worked for in his life. I need to think about it, he said. Of course, Ifeanyi replied, but don't take too long. Why? Because 3 other buyers are already asking questions. That night, Chinedu could barely sleep. The idea of owning such a property consumed his thoughts. He imagined the future, a shopping plaza, luxury apartments, office spaces rented to multinational companies. The returns could be enormous, but the risk was equally large. Around midnight, he sat on the edge of his bed. His wife Amaka stared beside him. You are not sleeping, she said quietly. Chinedu sighed. There is a land opportunity. Amaka opened her eyes. How much? 650 million. She sat upright instantly. Chinedu, I know. That is almost everything we have. Yes. Silence filled the room. Amaka looked at her husband carefully. She had seen that look in his eyes before, the look of a man standing at the edge of a life-changing decision. Do you trust the deal? She asked. I trust Ifeanyi. That is not the same thing. Chinedu nodded slowly. But opportunities like this do not come often. Amaka thought for a long moment. Then she said quietly, if you believe it will secure our future, then do it. 3 weeks later, the deal was finalized. The meeting took place in a luxurious office overlooking the city skyline. Chinedu arrived early. When Chief Bamidele Adeyemi entered the room, the atmosphere shifted immediately. He was tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored agbada, and carried himself with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to power. Introductions were brief. Lawyers reviewed documents, survey plans were examined, everything appeared legitimate. Finally, the payment was made. 650 million naira transferred. Contracts signed. Handshakes exchanged. Congratulations, Chinedu, said Chief Adeyemi with a smile. You have made a wise investment. Chinedu left the building feeling like a man who had just stepped into a new chapter of his life. For weeks afterwards, he visited the land regularly. Standing on the property, he imagined the buildings that would rise there. The future looked bright, very bright. But Chinedu did not yet understand something important. In Port Harcourt, land could be more than property. Sometimes it was a battlefield, and sometimes the real battle only began after the money changed hands. 2 months later, Chinedu's phone rang early one morning. It was Ifeanyi. His voice sounded different, tense. Chinedu, we have a problem. Chinedu stood up slowly. What problem? Ifeanyi's voice dropped to a whisper, a very powerful one. And in that moment, Chinedu Okafor had no idea that the 650 million naira deal he believed would secure his future was about to drag him into a conflict that would test his courage, his resources, and his faith in justice itself. The storm had only just begun.